Fathers, how did your child change your life forever? Like any new parent, I had always imagined my child's first words would be Dada or Mama, but one day she said a name I didn't recognize, Mike. No one in my family had that name, and I didn't know anyone by that name either. At first, I thought it was just a fluke, nothing to worry about, but as she repeated it, something inside me started to feel awe. I asked my wife if she knew anyone named Mike. She looked at me, shrugged, and said no, but there was something in her eyes that didn't sit right. I tried to ignore it, but that name kept nagging at me. After a few days, I decided to call her work to see if a Mike worked there. Turns out he did. Not only did he work there, but according to her co-workers, they had become quite close. I confronted her, asking flat out if she had been seeing someone. She denied it instantly, calling me paranoid and brushing it off. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Since I was often away on business trips, I decided to set up cameras in the house to keep an eye on things while I was gone. Soon after, I received a notification that motion had been detected in the living room. I opened the app and my heart sank. There he was, Mike, standing in my house with my wife and daughter. Without hesitation, I canceled my trip and drove straight home. When I walked in, I found them in bed together, my daughter sleeping next to them. I didn't yell or argue. I simply took my daughter in my arms and walked out of the house. After the divorce, I gained 75% custody of my daughter, and now I'm fighting for 100%. She's my everything, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. Fathers, what's the best way you've messed with your daughter's boyfriend? When my daughter brought her first boyfriend home, I kept it polite. Just a handshake, a smile, and a casual, call me sir. But in my mind, I was already planning something he wouldn't forget. I wasn't gonna yell or give him the typical hurt my daughter and you'll regret it speech. No, I wanted something more memorable. After a few minutes of small talk, I said, why don't you come with me? I've got something to show you. I led him to my tool shed, where my hunting gear and rifles are mounted on the wall. He looked a bit uneasy, but followed me in. I pointed to the row of guns and said, pick your favorite. He hesitated, so I added, go ahead, don't be shy. After a moment, he pointed to a Winchester Model 70. I nodded. Good choice. That one's got range. I walked over to my workbench, pulled out a box of bullets, and started sorting through them. Every rifle has a perfect bullet, I said, as if I were sharing a life lesson. Then I grabbed my carving knife, sat down, and began engraving his name onto the side of one bullet. The kid stood there frozen as I held it up and said, this one's yours now. It'll be waiting for you if you ever hurt my daughter. I slid the bullet back into the box, locked it away, and stared him straight in the eye. The rest of the evening, he barely said a word. My daughter kept asking what was wrong, but he just shook his head. From that day forward, he treated her like she was made of gold, and I'm pretty sure he still remembers that bullet.
Have you ever noticed someone checking out your child? One afternoon, my daughter came home unusually quiet. When I asked what was wrong, she avoided my eyes. After a long pause, she finally said, some men keep staring at us during recess. Her school's playground sat right next to a busy intersection. When the light turned red, cars lined up along the fence. Most drivers just waited for the green light, but not all of them. A few men, always the same type, driving dirty work trucks, wearing worn baseball caps, would sit there and stare. At first, I told her to stick close to her friends and stay near the teachers. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. These were grown men staring at children, staring at my child. I brought it up with the school, but their response was dismissive. We can't control what happens outside our property line. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next morning, my husband, her stepdad, and a few of his construction buddies parked their trucks right along that fence, engines idling. When recess started, those familiar trucks rolled up to the light again. But this time, the men didn't stare. They glanced over and saw my husband's crew staring back at them, unflinching. Suddenly, the traffic light seemed to command their full attention. The next day, those trucks didn't show up. And after that, the lingering eyes were gone for good.